as the Biden administration moves into high gear to try to push through all its proposals, a lot of bad stuff coming down the pike. It's really important for the opposition, for us, to move into high gear on our side. Not just to block and tackle, we need to do that, but also to think about strategically about our moves down the road. They say that an army is only as good as its generals, and we certainly know this to be true from the history of war. Think, for example, about how the Union armies were hampered in the beginning. They had lousy generals like McClellan that didn't want to engage, didn't know how to engage, basically waited and waited and waited some more. It wasn't until Lincoln got Grant and Sherman that the whole operation began to change and become much more effective. Now, the leading general on the Republican side, on the conservative side, is obviously Trump. And we have a general who is under the gun because there is all kinds of efforts on the part of the left to immobilize this guy. It's remarkable to see how open they are about it. They'll talk on NPR about the fact that, oh, wow, if we let Trump back on social media, this could help him if he runs again. So they're making it really clear that digital media is a weapon to prevent Trump from returning to power in any form. And then, of course, there are all the efforts led by the Southern District of New York. This is the outfit that prosecuted me, to go after Trump, to get him on something. And it's very clear this is kind of a fishing expedition. Let's go raid Giuliani's office. Let's go search the computers. They've even sort of notified the people in Palm Beach that they need to be ready so that if they attempt to go after Trump, to arrest Trump, they would need to figure out how to do that. So this is a man who is marked by the other side. And it might be tempting in this phase for Trump to want to pull back, to say, well, you know what, I'll just play golf, I'll step out of it. But that's not Trump, fortunately. It's also important for us to realize that the best defense is a good offense, to think about the best moves to counter the other side where it matters, to make the correct move, not just to be active, but to be active in the right way. So I want to take up the question of what Trump is doing and what Trump should do. Now, what Trump is doing quite clearly is Trump has become sort of the key power broker in the Republican Party. It's almost an interesting scene to see these would-be candidates making their way down to Mar-a-Lago to sort of get Trump's blessing before they enter the race, because that could often be the decisive factor. It's not even the organizational skills. It's not even the amount of money you can raise. It's whether or not Trump gives you the green light. So Trump clearly is the mover and shaker in the Republican Party. And by being that, he is reshaping the party. He's remaking the Republican Party in a Trumpian mode. And it's becoming, you may say, a full-on MAGA party. The expulsion of Liz Cheney from the leadership position was symbolic of that. And this is actually what enraged the left the most. It wasn't even about Liz Cheney. They don't care about Liz Cheney. But they realized that what this means is that this is no longer the party of Bush, that the Bush-Cheney era is something that Republicans want to get beyond and put behind them and kind of never go back to. And that Trump has laid out the path for the party going forward. So that's an important thing that Trump is doing. Now, Trump has also been talking about doing a super PAC. And this would be an effort to directly involve Trump in the races in 2022. And of course, in whatever capacity he chooses in 2024, either him running or him trying to be the power broker and discerning who should be the candidate. So the super PAC would be the practical mechanism for providing funding and logistical support and political support and advertising and all the various things that politics requires in order to carry itself out. There's also been talk about Trump launching his own social media platform. I can totally understand why Trump would want to do that. Trump lived on social media. He loved it. I mean, it was really almost touching to see how Trump would tweet late in the night, early in the mornings. You know, this is a guy who enjoyed social media, was part of his public identity. And then it was sort of taken away from him in a ridiculous way. And still, you've got these preening digital moguls who I think are secretly very proud of what they've accomplished, inflicting a real wound on Trump, not just a political wound, but I would say also a psychological wound. So you can see why Trump would be determined to have his own voice, to have his own platform. But it seems to me that this is only important to do if the other digital platforms don't get their act together. But if we get a fully functioning redesigned Parler up on the App Store, and if we have an effective Frank launched by Mike Lindell, and if we've got Rumble for videos, then we actually do have mechanisms that have been a little bit slow to get into full operation, but nevertheless can be very, very helpful down the road. Trump doesn't, in that case, need his own platform. He just needs to become active on these platforms and use the platforms that already exist. Now, there is one thing that does not exist that we do need, and I think we need quite desperately, and it also puts Trump is the guy in a unique position to be able to do this. And that is, we need a national network. I don't just mean a talk radio network. I don't just mean a politics 24 hours a day network. I don't actually mean another Fox. What I mean rather is something more like ABC or CBS. Networks that penetrate to tens of millions of households, a network that has the full lifestyle gamut of programming. So it has politics, but it also has shows that are the equivalent of The View, kind of conversational shows that appeal to the younger generation, stand-up comedy, movies, late-night shows, and perhaps reality shows, soaps, the whole deal. In other words, a network that people can sort of live in. It's a little difficult to be on a network where you hear the same thing again and again and again and again, and then again. You want a network that caters to the variety of not only demographic groups, but also the variety of human interests. The desire, for example, for stuff about religion, and stuff about lifestyle, and stuff about saving money. And now, Trump can do this. Why? He has the brand. In other words, he has the name. He has the money. And he also has the contacts of other people who could put in money. They would trust him. Other investors would trust Trump to do this. Trump also has the pop culture exposure. He's a guy who's been on TV. He knows how to do it. And finally, he has the ready-made audience. He not only has the 70 million plus people who voted for him, but his collective followings on social media were huge. So the market is like waiting for Trump to do this. And so, in a sense, I'm playing advisor to Trump, not in the sense that I'm whispering into his ear, but I'm sort of shouting it out loud so he can hear and others around him can hear that this would be an incredible thing to do, not instead of the stuff that he's doing, but in addition to it. It would put him right back into the game. It would give conservatives something that we've needed for a long time, something that, by the way, would outlast Trump, which is our own voice piped directly into the American home without the refracting, corrupting, and distorted filter of the media.